Well, everybody, it is another episode of Remodelers on the Rise. And I have my friend and colleague, Michael Anschel. Michael, say hi to everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody. And if you lean in a little bit for those watching the video version, Michael, we've got two custom made. These are the only two of these hats in all of the world, and they say COPE. It stands for Cost of Project Execution. And you may have heard us talking about this. We've had some posts out there. If you're on my email list, you've been getting a healthy dose of emails, and that is what is kind of on the docket for today. Is to talk a little bit further about this approach, this fresh, modern approach to pricing and estimating that Michael has coined cost of project execution. So the way that we're going to approach this today is to just zero in on. Now, there's 10 benefits. 10 benefits of the cost of
10
project.
named, 10
10
named
main
benefits.
10
There's
main
more.
benefits.
They go on, but 10's just a good number to package with.
There's a very long tail of benefits in
I
addition
think.
to these main ones.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Good karma, nice soft pillow to sleep in.
Okay. All right, we'll write those down. They didn't make the cut for the landing page for the course, but there's other benefits as well. But what we wanted, we've had a great response. Had a solid number of signups and people that are excited for the course that we have coming up. The first session of the course is a month from today, December 1st. But as of Friday this week ends the early bird pricing. So we'll mention that a couple times during this. But we would love for those of you watching live to ask some questions, leave some comments, and we'll have some back and forth there. Michael, what are you excited about related to this upcoming course?
Oh, man, you're very clever, Kyle. You had to add in related to this course because you knew I would say something completely off subject.
Yeah, sure. That's why the fun thing about this course is it's going to be the two of us, and Michael's got lots of content he's going to share, and I'm going to I just guided you there, and you just get used to that because I'll keep guiding. But what
That's
are you excited about with this
value
course?
number 13 is that you get not one of us, you get two of us.
Two for the price of one.
Yeah. What am I most excited about? The thing that I'm most excited about is the same thing that I'm excited about whenever I'm talking about the industry or working with folks in the industry, and that is watching other people become more successful, become more polished, and slowly but surely trying to shift and nudge this industry so that it performs at a higher level. That's the thing for me. I like teaching, and I like it when the people who I'm teaching with grow and learn, and I get to see that thing blossom and flourish. That's what gives me my warm fuzzies.
Love it. That was a weak heart. Your heart there looked more like a
I can't
a little bit more point at the bottom. There it is. I can't do it either.
There you go.
And what I'm excited about is yes, what you shared there as well. But this has been something that has been we've done interviews on it. You've done teaching on it. If you go to the International Builder Show in 2023, you can do an hour session. Michael will be there talking about this for an hour. But this course it's 6 sessions. It's 2 hours each, and it's going to allow us to really dig into the details of it. There's been a lot of remodelers just based on the interviews that we've done who have grabbed this by the horns and have implemented it. So by going deeper into this, it's going to allow for stronger implementation to happen. So I'm excited about that. So what we're going to do, let's go through some of the benefits. The first one, Michael, I'll have you comment on it. This first benefit says, find common ground with prospects. This approach of cost of project execution can help you find common ground with prospects. Tell us a little bit about that. And also, hey, I see all you people watching live. Can you give us a little like? Can you throw a little comment out there? Can you ask us a question, pretty please?
Aren't you supposed to say smack that like button and smack that subscribe button? I think
that's kind of cool. What you have to understand is I'm not corny at all.
So I'm not gonna say. Isn't that's the language that all the big YouTubers use?
They're always smash it. Yeah, it sounds kind of weird to me.
Yeah. Delicately press, lightly click on.
Lightly, just give me a little something is what I'm looking for. Find common ground with prospects. Why do we have that as one of the benefits of this?
Well, is this an infomercial?
Hang in there.
Oh, it could be, I guess. I mean, it's
Hmm.
informational. There we go. Is it a
Maybe a little.
commercial? No, I don't think it's a commercial. I think it's a note, like on when we're thinking about the kinds of questions that people ask and the requests that you get, and then we say, all right, well, let's try to put that into a actual package where people can walk through it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a for sale piece there, but there's also it's I would say it's in response to a lot of the questions and the demand that we've been getting around the subject, and so let's formalize it, right? Let's actually sit down and do the hard work. So
I wonder who wrote that. Maybe I wonder if they're like, I tuned in for content, and you guys are just talking about this
It's
course. I
got
don't
to
know.
be Paul McManus. That's like it's got to be
Paul's a
Paul.
teddy. He's a teddy bear. Okay. Hey.
All right, so
No, it's that. Look at
it's
Dave
Dave.
Pollard. Didn't mean to be coy, but great answer.
Can't believe I let that guy into my living room throwing comments like that back.
Yeah, I heard about that. You met Dave for the first time in person a couple weeks ago.
I did. It was really exciting. Chad and Halfhill stopped by the house and brought David along with him, and we got to have some early morning, robust coffee conversation about our businesses, business models, and even some of this subject, like because it's still something that everyone is working on, right?
There you go. There you go. So find common ground with prospects. Hit me with that.
So I think that one of the most commonly heard things in amongst contractors, the big complaint thing is around the numbers and the client wanting to understand the numbers and them feeling like they're coming under attack or they're going to get nickel and dimed, and that and there's bad advice out there from folks like, you're not obligated to share anything, and they just need to accept your numbers as they are, and that doesn't alleviate the pain point, right? Whenever we bump up against resistance, when we bump into something like that, it's an indicator that there's an unresolved thing, and we can either push back on it really hard, or we can open it up and then look at why is that there, why is that happening, and why is it consistently happening. I mean, right? If you ask anybody in the industry, this is a consistent issue.
Yeah.
So can we unpack it so that we change that dynamic, we change that relationship? And I think that part of the issue stems from the way that a lot of remodelers were taught to estimate in the first place, which leaves them vulnerable to or makes them uncomfortable with answering those questions. So if you can change the way that you estimate, and you can change the way that you talk about the costs of the project, then you have this opportunity to move around to the client side of the table and function more like their partner in the process, more like their advocate. And when people say, "Well, clients just need to trust you," well, no, they don't need to just trust you, right? Very few of us would ever do that in anything else in our lives. Like if we're going to go write a check for $100,000, I want more than just you seem like a nice person, so I'm going to trust you. Yeah, and I think that we shouldn't insult our customers' intelligence when they say, "Hey, I'd like more to go on than just trust." And the reality is that if you have a good solid estimating system, if you don't have a black box where you throw one number in and something pops up the other side and no one's really sure how we got there, that actually builds real trust. And that is hugely valuable, especially for remodelers who go through a very messy, complicated process. The more trust and goodwill that you can create early on in the process, because you're going to burn through some of it when things go wrong, the better you're going to be at the end.
How long have you been approaching it with this method?
Yeah. Oh, it's funny. I always said 7 years, and then I realized that 2.5, 3 years went by. So it's been a little over a decade now that we've been using this, and the early stages of it, were a little rough as we kind of try to figure it out. But once we got the swing of it, we got that rhythm, and we got our processes worked out, it's been transformational for us. It's made us a lot more profitable. It's allowed us to track our cash flow, and weather all kinds of unique economic conditions in a much healthier and robust way. And it's changed the kinds of projects that we even take on, because it gave us better insight to why we were or were not profitable on projects, and changed how we looked at our calendar and the kinds of and sizes of projects we would take on, and then how we would charge for those different types of projects, because it's not one size fits all.
Yeah. Good. Dave followed up and said, was just trying to have a McManus-esque comment. He would like to thank you for having me in your living room. And somebody else said, if you go to StreamYard.com/Facebook, you can click the button that allows us to see your pretty name and face. But this person said, good morning, guys.
That's Steve Cunningham.
Now, Steve, you're Eastern time zone, my friend. It's currently 12:12, so we are officially in the afternoon. But if it was Sunday, we'd be back an hour, so you would be correct. It would still be morning. We spent the two little kids and I were driving to school today, and it took us about 5 minutes to say, wait, so the clocks are going back, because Annie, sweet Annie, was saying she loves going to school at this time because the sun is rising. Actually, she said, because I get to see the sunset. And I said, sunset? And she goes, sunrise. Turns out it's going to be brighter in the morning. It took us a minute to get through it, but we figured that out. All right. So that's one of the benefits. Find common ground with prospects. You touched on a variety of items there, but what the crux of what I was hearing there is, if it feels like we're kind of on opposite ends of the table, sides of the table, especially in this environment where material prices are so up and down, where our trade partners, the cost of that is higher. You're telling me that as you're talking to remodeling prospects and you're putting numbers in front of them, ranges in front of them, that their eyes aren't a little bit bugged out, that they're not going, wow, why does it cost that much? Wow, that's more than I thought it was going to be. Now with interest rates going up, everything is more costly. So this environment that you're selling in, that you're marketing and selling in and producing in, is really begging the homeowner more and more to want to have more insight into the projects and where are the costs going and where are my costs going. The cost of project execution approach really unveils that. You can choose to be as transparent as you want to be within it, but it really unveils it while protecting and sometimes even improving and increasing your gross profit and your profitability on the project. If you're doing $20,000 projects, $32,000 projects, I wouldn't say this cost of project execution approach would be as attractive. It's kind of like, this is what the cost is. Here's kind of the scope of work. This is what it is. When you're getting into that 150, 190, 272, $347,000 projects, you're telling me that it's not tense when you're not really giving them insight into where these costs are. It's a challenge. So the question is, or the reason that a lot of people have looked at this approach and started implementing this approach is because it really shifts and changes the way that you can present how the project, all the costs come together and how you price it. So I would just add some of that in there.
That's interesting, Kyle. Can I piggyback on that?
Yes, you can.
So the bigger projects emphasize the problem, right? Once you hit 3, 5, 8 million, those projects, once you cross over into the millions thresholds, if you do anything that's got any public financing attached to it, you don't even have a choice in that case. But as the projects get bigger, it's kind of like a blister, right? It's a little tiny project. It's not as noticeable, but when you get big, this becomes a real major issue, and you've got to be prepared to deal with it. I would note that while it might not be as attractive when you're working in smaller projects where the client's not necessarily asking questions because their expectation is already set that should be $20,000 or $30,000, it's still $20,000 or $30,000, right? Most of us don't go out and spend $20,000, right, without some thought. And the internal benefits of this process on those smaller projects in many ways are more critical, right? There's less room in those projects. There's less margin. There's less that you can tuck into overhead. It's actually probably more critical to be, if you want to be profitable on a small project, to really get those dials set exactly where they should be, versus on a larger project where there's arguably a little more slot. There's a little more room within it just because of the scale of the project.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Cool. We're gonna move on to the next one. Sometimes I use fancy sound effects here, like this. That
That
designates we're
is,
moving on to the next benefit. The next benefit, I'm just going to hit it real fast. It says 2 coaches for the price of 1. Michael is a teacher. He's a remodeler. He's your peer. He's doing what you guys are doing in business. He is dealing with the production side of it and designing and estimating and all of the challenge that you guys are at. But he's also been a teacher at the International Builder Show and in a wide variety of routes. You teach college courses, etc. So you're a teacher at heart. And what I'm really excited about with this course is the opportunity, one, for Michael to do a lot of the heavy lifting of the teaching, because I'm usually the one doing all the heavy lifting. But what I'm excited about is, one, yes, kind of managing the conversation, managing the questions, adding my my input to it. But I am going to be really pushing the people that are participating in this, not to just participate for the sake of knowledge, but to truly do the work that we offer you and put in front of you, so that you can actually implement this. I am one that, look, there's a lot of different ways to price your project, but if you read that costofprojectexecution.com, where we kind of lay out the whole project. I'm a coach that needs to be open to not being stuck in my ways and what we've always done it based on volume-based markup, this and that. There's more than one way to price your projects. We need to be careful not to get set in our ways. We need to continue to learn, and this course is going to give us an opportunity to do that. So, Chime, that was all we're going to say about that one. We're moving on to the next one. This says easier estimating. Michael, I want you to comment on this. It says, because you're not marking up the bits and pieces, you can quickly and easily rework estimates to address the changes that happen in project development. No more wasted hours. Can you share a little bit about that?
Did I say that?
I mean, I was mostly the brilliance that put together the landing page, but you reviewed it and edited it. Yes.
Yeah, all right. So I don't know if anyone out there listening can relate, but I know that when in my early days of estimating, when we'd sit down, go over a project, and either we were at budget or a little bit over budget, and the client would say, well, all right, so if I need to cut something, what would happen if I took out X, Y, and Z? Or could we make this change? And inside myself, I was, quietly screaming, oh man, because I knew that I had a bunch of overhead and margin kind of shoved into everything. And as we started, if we started to open up those pieces, I couldn't show them the costs from my suppliers, right? B, I was worried that I was suddenly losing a bunch of money because I had, my profit and my overhead were attached to those items. And so now the client was taking them out to make the project less, which meant I was making less. And then I would put in many, many hours rebuilding the estimate and trying to redistribute
The
markup in a way that, allowed the project to cost less. It took a lot of energy, both emotional energy as well as time. And time is super valuable in this industry. So if I have a system that is where I can clearly see all of the pieces, and the client says, hey, what if we take out the pantry cabinets? Then I can, go over here to pantry cabinets and I can hit delete and they're gone, right? And I didn't go into my profit. I didn't go into my overhead to make changes. I removed a section of cabinets. The length of the project is still the same. The management of the project is still the same. We're just, a couple boxes less. So the cost of project execution is locked up. My overhead is locked up. My profit is locked up. It's the individual parts and pieces that I can now quickly remove. So I can adjust an estimate on the fly with a client in real time. I can even, we do the transparency thing. So I share my screen so that they're looking at the estimating software with me. and we can go into those areas and we can make the changes directly, and then they can see the cost of the project change. It's so fast, right? And so clean.
I like it. I like it. So it's fancy sound effects. Find common ground with prospects. We touched on this. No shell game. 2 coaches for the price of 1. We talked about easier estimating. I wanted to share this because I thought that would be helpful for people to kind of wrap their head around it. This is a little bit of the nuts and bolts of how what does cost of project execution actually stand for. And I just kind of pulled this up of these different codes. And Michael, why don't you just kind of explain? This is kind of the heart of what we're talking about, where we're taking something. My buddy Terry was just outside before we clicked live earlier, and I said, Terry, I gotta get on my live show. He goes, what are you talking about today? I said, cost of project execution. And he said, well, what does that even mean? I'll pull that up here in a second again. What does that even mean? I said, well, a lot of remodelers, what they do for better or for worse, is they do volume-based markup, where they figure out what all of their overhead costs are, what their profit goal is. They estimate what their sales are going to be, and then they take all of their costs on the project, multiply it by 1.50, and they get their selling price. They multiply by 1.60, they multiply by 1.43, and they get their selling price. And there's this gentleman up in Minnesota named Michael Anschel, and for the last decade, he's been doing it differently, where he has something called cost of project execution. So these are the different categories, some of them, of the different categories. Tell the people how this works, Michael.
Sure. So the cost of project execution is exactly what it sounds like. It is all of the hours that we spend ordering materials, getting our permits and plan review, doing inspections, doing quality assurance, meeting with the client, everything that is not, none of this is overhead, even accounting for the project. If the project didn't exist, right, then I wouldn't have any time put in tracking invoices and paying bills on those specific things. And so if we go through each of those sections and estimate them the way that we estimate the rest of the project, now we start to get a picture of what the actual management costs are to create the project, right? And then the client, instead of just saying, well, $7,000 for plumbing, that, the plumbing costs $7,000. Why are you charging me 12? Right? Which is what static margin or volume-based pricing would do. And you're like, well, that's not really 12 because, some of that's overhead and some of that's profit and some of that is me making the job happen. Well, let's take the me making the job happen part out and actually quantify it. And then we also can get a more accurate reflection of what the project will take. If we have a complex job or a complicated client or a complicated city zoning approval process, we can account for that in here, where a static margin or a static markup isn't going to know the difference between a complicated project and a simple project. So in essence, this is a way for us to isolate each of those things into different categories and then distribute them across the estimate so that they're not clumped together in one spot. Because there's a little psychology that goes along with this.
Yeah. So I'm just putting a couple of things in there. One nice thing about the course is we got actual examples. We've got, here's how I did this on this $150,000 project. Here's how it breaks out for this $120,000 project. But I wanted to just pull this up to give you guys an understanding of this, where, you are actually, this is a very foreign concept until you kind of think about it. Have you ever thought about how long it takes for you to do all of the load in, the ordering, the returning, the checking of all of the materials on that $200,000 project you just did? The great majority of you listening to this have never even contemplated that. Well, Michael says, let's track how many hours we expect that to take, and then let's have that as a line item in our proposal for $2,150. That's the cost to provide that part of the cost of project execution. So you go through each of these different codes, each of these different areas of cost of project execution. You think through how long, and you start tracking how long it's going to take. And now all of a sudden, that cost of project execution on this project has $22,362 worth of cost that the homeowner is going to pay. You still have an overhead line item because you have advertising and truck and fuel and accounting and business coaching and all of those line items. And then you also have a profit goal, but that overhead line is much less than what it typically might look like on a proposal. Your profit line is 8%, 9%, 10%, whatever you deem to be that number. And you just mentioned at the end there's a lot of psychology behind this. When I break it out and I'm offering transparency and I'm showing you where the money is going, the level of trust increases. The reason that I'm really behind this is not only what I've learned from you, but I've seen at this point a dozen of my clients embrace this and are having great success with it. And that's why we're doing this course, is so more people can be familiar with it, dig into it, understand it, and perhaps transition to something like this that will be very helpful for them in the years and decades ahead.
Yeah. What would be really awesome is if the this is my personal private goal here, but if the people who took this course, who are members of other groups that try to help remodelers be more professional, were to go to those groups then and say, hey, there's a better way for us to do this, and that they would then go teach this content and take it and push it beyond, so we could actually like fully fix how remodelers estimate projects.
Yeah. I mean, and I hear what you're saying there, because you got a big picture of this. Like, this is a very helpful approach. Rainey Blair, Peter and Scott, longtime clients of mine, they've embraced this and are implementing it. And similar to what you're describing, people in my VIP club know that they're doing this, and it's been a topic of conversation at our in-person events. It's been a topic in some of our training that gets people going. So step at a time.
Yeah.
So for the course, if you go to costofprojectexecution.com, there's a nice little discounted price through the early bird pricing, which ends on Friday at 5:00 p.m. So kind of keep an eye out for that, and check out the landing page that goes into. Michael did a video. I did a video. He said, Kyle, you put your video first. It was great. I said, oh, Michael, your video is much better than mine. It should go first. So we are just going to be the picture of encouraging to each other and to everybody that is in this course. Now, people that are watching live, give us a quick question. We want to kind of wrap up in the coming minutes, but I'd love a couple questions or two. We've covered several of the benefits. What's one of the other benefits that maybe we didn't touch on, Michael, that maybe we should give a little time to?
I think, yeah, man, 30 minutes goes fast with the two of us, doesn't it? Whew.
Yes.
That's why we're doing this over 6 sessions. I think that's important to note. And I think you mentioned implementation, but theory is one thing, and listening. We've all been to events where we hear someone talk about something, we're like, that's a really good idea. And you go back to your team and they're like, what are you talking about? And you don't have the concept solid enough that you can necessarily share it. And so nothing happens. And I think this really key here is we're going to practice it together. We're going to have that opportunity to try this with training wheels, to get feedback, to clean it up so that you actually can, like, 0 to 20 miles an hour is that's the greatest expenditure of energy. Once you're there and you're moving, refinement is pretty easy. Yeah. So that's something I think is worth highlighting. And the other thing I would say is, I think you kind of touched on it earlier with, the shifting cost of materials. And the last 6 years has seen a lot of volatility for pricing in our industry, right? Between lumber prices and steel prices and trade wars and all the nonsense that goes on, right? All of us have seen those increases from our material suppliers. And I think decoupling our profit and our overhead calculations from those things is a really critical step. Yeah. And evidently, according to YouTube, we can also, there's a dating site we should be checking out, which is very exciting.
Oh, no. Oh, there's thing. We're going to block you. Bailey, how are you allowing some spam person to get in here?
I love it. Something in the algorithm says if they're talking about estimating and numbers, they really must be pretty lonely individuals.
I guess so. Everson says really, really good what he's hearing, though. Yeah, that's a great point. The other thing, as far as the team goes, and what you shared there of, I mean, information's a dime a dozen. If you want to learn a little bit more information, like Michael and I have done 3 or 4 recordings, but getting an opportunity to ask questions, to hear what other remodelers who are implementing their experience with it. Hey, I took a proposal that I did my traditional way since our last session, and I did it this new way, and I have questions. There's so much learning that happens in that. Each session, we're going to have plenty of time for Q&A. And then 2 of the people that signed up late last week, they were delighted to hear that, if you buy 1 seat, if you buy 1 access, that's good for your whole team. So there's several companies that are bringing on a few of their team members and they're going to attend training together. And the reason you're excited about that and the reason I'm excited about that is because that is what is going to lead to full buy-in and implementation, instead of kind of learning this in a silo, bringing it back. That's harder to implement, especially a change like this. This is a decent size, major-ish change to the way that a lot of people are doing business. And I love your analogy. It takes a little bit of time to get a little momentum going, get a little speed going, and then, you can be off and rolling with it.
I'm trying to think of a comparable analogy, but in the field, I was trying to think of a task that people perform wrong until they learn to perform it right. But unlearning habits can be really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that the way that this industry has approached estimating is a bad habit. It's not reflected in the commercial industry side version of us. It's not reflected in almost any other sophisticated industry. And I think it's been a real disservice to us, because now everyone's got, this kind of cheap, inefficient, and inaccurate method of estimating. And it's going to feel weird to change it. If only we had taught it at the very, very beginning when people are starting up their companies. So it'd be better.
But and for those who have actually been watching Michael and I do these interviews, I have put on a master class in getting Michael to soften his rough edges. He was saying volume-based markup, those fools. Why in the world would they do that? Now he's showing some respect, and he's kind of like, look, we're just going to teach a different method. You're doing a beautiful job of that, because we're not going to throw. Pardon?
You have tempered me.
Yes, because we're not going to throw shade. And I mean, frankly, one of the things when you said it one time, I'm like, dude, you can't say that volume-based markup is not successful, because I can point to Josh Nelson, I can point to Stu Kavner, I can point to all these people, all my clients who have made very good money doing it this way. Now, it takes wisdom to realize when something that's working, it's time to maybe explore and try something new. Or if something's working for you, does that mean that's exactly how you're going to do it 5 years from now? Shouldn't you be evaluating things, experimenting with things? That's what good leaders do. That's what leaders that stay on the cutting edge of things do. And that's really what I've seen happen a lot here. I have not seen anybody that has tried it, have fully understood it, have implemented it, that said, nah, no thanks, I don't like it. Everybody that's implemented have gone, I like this a lot.
Yeah, everyone has. Yeah, I had a. Oh, thanks, Phil. I think it does learn new tricks.
Absolutely.
It would be what's a good? Let me think. Quick analogy. 4 on the floor, right? 3 on the tree. If you know what that means, and that's how you learned to drive, and those were the vehicles you were driving, and you're like, it works. Yeah, those vehicles did work. But if you've driven an electric, like if you've been in a Tesla, those also work, and they work a lot better. Arguably, even a modern combustion engine or a hybrid engine works a lot better. So, we used to have these engines that were serviceable and you could work on them, and they were simple. And that industry changed it and became more sophisticated and put computers in the engines so that it was more accurate and more efficient and more performance. This is kind of similar, right? It's like, there is the rust bucket approach, and then there's a higher performance approach. I got really close to being
careful. Careful. We don't install anybody on our show here. So if you go to costofprojectexecution.com, in the first little section of it is some writing from me, and there's a link to another show that Michael and I did where we really dug into here's exactly what C.O.P.E is. So if this is intriguing to you at all, go watch that so you have a better understanding of things. Check out the landing page, and reach out to me if you have any questions. Happy to answer them. Costofprojectexecution.com. That's today's show, and the people really liked it. That is all of you sitting there listening to the show. Michael, that was helpful. I'm really looking forward to doing this together. We're starting up on December 1st. Grab your seats if you are interested. And even if you're not interested, we're glad you listened and dialed in, and we hope we taught you something and entertained you a little bit.
Awesome.
All right, Michael. Talk again soon. Thanks, everybody.